Hey, oh my gosh, guys, I got some explaining to do. Well, I've just been all over the place and I've been uploading shorts like everywhere. So I have been keeping updated with shorts on YouTube, but I haven't uploaded a DIY in a minute. So today we're going to do a DIY. I hope you guys enjoy it. I've been looming my butt off, working my butt off. So I hope you enjoy it. So let's head over to the craft day. Okay, so what we have today is Loom knitted plushies. And I'm starting off with my slip knot, just in case you guys don't know how to do it. We're going to do a slip knot here and place it on my starter peg. I always like to have my excess yarn hanging on the left side, and you'll see when you watch the video later on why. I'm gonna do a E-stitch cast on, and it's basically like writing a letter E in cursive around the loom on each peg, and this is how I normally start most of my projects, unless I find another project that says otherwise. My bad, y'all. The arrow was supposed to be for the starter peg. I always like to knit off on it first to hold my place for starting my next row of E-stitch. So I think this may be a pretty good project for beginners. I try to do my best with showing how to do the purl stitch, because you will be doing the purl stitch during this project. But I think it's pretty straightforward, so we'll see. I hope you guys enjoy it. And so now we're just going to knit off on all our stitches. That's basically just bringing your bottom loop over the top into the middle so it can fall through the middle part. This is also a baby booty loom I forgot to mention earlier. So if you're interested, it comes in a pack of 2 with like the baby beanie and the baby booty at Joanne. So if you're curious about investing in it, it's normally what I use to make baby booties with. But since then, I've made a lot of mini plushies with it. At this point, you don't have to push all of your stitches down. I don't know why I felt the need to push all the stitches down, because I'm getting ready to do U-stitch. So I really just try to make sure it's at the half point. But from here, the body part of your jellyfish plushie, you'll be doing U-stitch like pretty much the whole way. So this is pretty much how you do a U-stitch. There is no right or wrong way to hold the loom. I don't like to set mine on the table because my thumb ends up being pressed to the top of it and it hurts. So I prefer to hold mine in my hand. So you're going to end up U-stitching for in blue or whatever color you choose for about 16 rows. My bad, y'all. I have to remember that I'm filming for YouTube and the video needs to be horizontal. So I'm learning, and from now on I'll do my best to make sure that it's horizontal. If you just noticed that tug, you'll find that U-stitches are actually tighter than E-stitches. So I try to give it a tug because eventually when I go back around the second time, it's gonna be tighter. So I try to do tugs to make sure I kind of keep it loose. I'm trying to be very wary about my loom because I don't want to break it. I don't want to go out and buy a new one. So just be very cognizant of your U-stitches and kind of tug them to you to make them a little looser while working, because it's going to end up being tight. Because that's the reason why I like this stitch, is because I don't have to do extra work. For E-stitches, I would have had to make the body really long and then fold it into itself to keep the fiber from coming out the middle. But since I'm E-stitching, I only have to do it one work of the project, stuff it really tight, and you don't see the fiber coming out of your project. So that was one row of U-stitch. I'm gonna speed it up and I'll pretty much be back when I am ready to change colors. So you may want to pause it right now until you catch up to your 16th row, because I'm gonna skip all of that and end up changing colors in a few minutes. Here we are changing colors. So this is my technique for changing colors. If the colors are two different colors, I don't worry about tying anything together, because I'm gonna eventually do it while I'm working the project, so there's no need for me to tie it in and out together to do a magic knot or anything, because I feel like even if I did a magic knot, you could still tell the knot will be there. So I prefer to do it this way. And I'm gonna make sure that my extra string was on the left side, so when I come back and tie my knot, my two extra strings will be side by side. And so we're just gonna continue U-stitching for 12 rows. I forgot to mention, so we're making the plushie on the left. The one on the right was my first one. It was a kind of a happy accident. I had to fix the tentacles. I prefer the tentacles on the one on the left. So I plan on updating the one on the right, and we'll go from there, just to the adjustments that I've made on the left one. Here you're going to have to be very careful with that blue when looping over. This is the area where I cut the string at, so I just want you to make sure to be very careful right there. You don't need to tug anything, you just need to slowly loop it over. I just wanted you to see how loose it was. And then when you loop it over, you want to tug on the previous color tighter, so that makes your U-stitch tight in that area. And then you're just gonna keep going. Okay, so now we have our yellow done. I'm going to go, and I did cut that off, by the way. I'm going to go on the inside. I want to go ahead and take care of that knot down there. Go ahead and tie those two pieces in the knot. You'll see that I'll constantly check the stitch on the outside to kind of make it look a little clean. It's still not going to be as clean as I would like to. That's a technique I'm still learning, to clean up like the row change, the color change. I'm still learning how to make that less noticeable. So I did notice that the yellow needed a little bit more of a tug on it, and that's why I only have the yellow in my hand trying to pull the stitch a little tighter. And then I'm gonna go ahead and finish putting it in a knot. Okay, we're gonna start the last row, and I was just trying to do a little color coordination. So I don't want the last row to really be that thick because of the tentacle area is gonna accentuate that area and make it a little wider. So I'm just gonna do about 7 U stitches, and then we're gonna do a gather bind off. I'm just showing you guys here that I'm just doing the same technique as in previous color change. So we're just doing the same thing throughout the body of the jellyfish. Okay, once again, we are coming up on the area where we cut the string loose from the yellow. So we want to be very careful in this area when looping over, because we don't want to snatch that strand back. So we're just going to very carefully loop it over, and then when we finish looping over, we're going to tug it. And then after that, I'm going to tie my previous area together to make sure that it's secure like I did earlier. You can kind of see the excess of the blue, so I'm only going to tug on the blue and make it a little bit tighter. We are going to take our tapestry needle and do a gather bind off. I usually go ahead and wrap the loom maybe 1.5 times and then cut it. I think that's a pretty good amount of length of yarn to do a gather bind off with. I find that it's easier to do a gather bind off in the front of the peg. The stitches usually fall off pretty easily. There you have it. The body of the jellyfish is done. So now we have to work on making him a little animated. I'm just showing you the different areas, even though he's upside down, but we're getting ready to start the tentacle area. And we're going to do the tentacle area by doing a rib stitch that I learned from a KB or a knitting board, Loom. And so it's a combination of 2 U-stitches and 2 purl stitches in 1 row. And I do that for 15 rows. As usual, I'm going to do my E-stitch cast on. So we're going to do a completed stitch of E-stitch, and then I will start my U-stitch 2 pegs, then purl stitch 2 pegs. I usually use a looming tool to help with wrapping for E-stitch, but since I'm only doing 1 row, I use my thumb to hold down the stitch in the back to keep it from popping off. What I mean by looming tool would be like a pen or like an office pen, or the actual looming pen, or a straw to help make the process go quicker. But when I get to the U-stitch to purl stitch to, I won't need one, so it usually gets in the way, so I don't use one at all. And I was just showing you guys how I knit off on the last peg to hold the stitches there while I try and work them, try and knit off on the other pegs. We are starting a rib stitch. That is a U-stitch, 1, U-stitch 2, purl stitch 1, purl stitch 2. And so you're going to keep this combination going throughout 1 row every time you do your rows. And it will create a ribbed look. At some point, if you get lost between the two stitches, you may want to use stitch markers, but I've been doing this stitch for so long that I've gotten used to it. So even if I mess up and have to go back and restart, after a certain amount of rows, you'll notice which area is supposed to be purl stitch and which is supposed to be U stitch. I forgot to mention that this is a 32 peg loom, and I have a difficult time working in a flat with this stitch, with this rib stitch. So I would suggest, if you're going to do this rib stitch, that you work in the round. I only work in the round. And basically working in a round is like making a tube. If you're working in the flat, it's like making a square or a rectangle. I'm just showing you here that you probably can use that loom to do the same thing, but I like the possibility of mine flaring out more. I don't know if it's gonna flare out as much as it did on the 32 peg loom, but the baby booty loom is 24 peg, so it's not a whole lot of difference, but I just had to make sure that mine flared out. And so this is where I'm basically showing you where you will notice that the U stitch will look different from the purl stitch. My yarn is so dark that it's kind of hard to tell, but when you do your work, you'll notice, like on the certain pegs where you're supposed to U stitch and purl stitch, that you'll see a difference. And then we're done. So we're gonna gather bind off this as well. So it should look something like this. When you pull yours close, you don't have to pull it as tight if you don't want to. It's really your preference, but either way it's going to create like a ruffled, almost like a ruffled tutu effect. So it's going to turn out fine. So now we're going to start putting pieces together. You want to go with your cast on each stitch area. That should be like your first loose stitch because it's going to be pretty loose. And you're going to thread your yarn through there and pull it closed. You're going to gather it. So we'll be doing like a lot of gathering and closing. Almost like closing off your hat when you knit a hat. You don't want to grab this too tightly closed because then it's gonna gather like you are closing a hat. So you want to take your fiber filament and try and mold it as much as you can so it'll look round and not ruffled. You want to pack the filament pretty tight, so you want to really get as much as you can in there because it's a tight stitching. So we're not concerned about it coming through the stitching or anything. That's why I did the U-stitch. But you're gonna want to fill this in as much as possible so that it can look more round than gathered. So if your hole didn't close at the top as much as you felt like it should, I usually do like a cross. So I go from side to side and then up and down, and then I pull it closed that way, and then I tie a knot so that it can close the hole. After doing that, I tie another knot, and then I take the string down through the middle to hide the string. You don't want to like cut the string away from your project at the risk of it unraveling and your project coming undone. So you just want to put the excess string down through the middle part of your project. I'm going to finish stuffing because I'm gonna try and figure out where to put my eyes. You wanna figure out where to place your eyes first before closing your project. So now, since I like the placement of the eyes on the previous one, I'm counting the stitches in between the eyes so I can get them right on this one. My bad, y'all. Didn't mean to have me placing the eyes in on his face out of the camera. I'll do better. So now that you have his eyes placed in where you want them to be, you want to take the filament back out and then place the back onto the eyes to secure the eyes in place. Now we're going to restuff and close him up. Remember to stuff him as much as possible, even if you have excess hanging out, because you can stuff it as you close it up. I'm not overly concerned about how the bottom area will look because I'm getting ready to cover this area with the tentacle, the rib tentacle that I made. So I'm just gonna make sure that it closes up because I'm gonna put something right there anyway. Make sure to tie a knot and secure your hole closed. I'm going to take this string back through the head, but you don't have to. You can actually take this string and use it to secure your tentacle. You'll find that I like to tug on my strings a little bit because once I cut it, I want it to disappear back into the plushie. And you want to constantly remold it while you're working it. So reshaping it with your hands and everything while you're working it. I'm getting ready to put his smile on, but before I do that, I want to give you guys a tip that I wish I would have thought of while working on this plushie. So instead of going up through the back of his head, go up through the bottom part where the tentacles will be, because you'll be able to hide the black string. So now my plushie has a black dot on the back of it where I created the smile, but you can hide your black string for your smile by going in through the bottom of the head and creating your smile that way. I repositioned where I wanted the string to come from. Sometimes you can make those adjustments without having to start all over, but some other times I had to start all over with the smile. But I wanted the string to be right here. And so once you finish this part, you're going to go back into the same spot where you pull the string out of last, and that is going to create your pivot or your dip for your smile. And this is the back, the black dot that I created in the back, but you can avoid this by going in through the bottom of the head and covering it up with the tentacles. So now I'm gonna tie a knot to basically secure the tentacles at the right shape that I want it to be. I'm gonna take this excess string and thread it back into the tentacle and tie a knot because you don't want it to adjust your tentacles or anyone to be able to pull the string. And I'm threading in through the bottom of the tentacle. You want your needle to go through the tentacle and the head of the plushie so that it attaches to your plushie, to, to the head well. At this point, it's pretty much how you would like for it to be connected, or how you would like for the tentacle to lean, or in any other way. But once you finish attaching the tentacle, you can pretty much knot it into place. And then when you add the rest of your tentacles, like I add the yellow area, I'm gonna secure the tentacles even more. So you may not even have to necessarily do that area, but it's your choice. I'm gonna take my yarn, my excess yarn, and thread it back through my plushie. you want to be careful in this area because somehow every time I do the tentacles, they end up shorter than the previous plushie. I don't understand, but I think I just go to cutting and cutting. So just be careful when making your sizing too short. It's always better to have it longer than it being too short because you can't fix it when it's too short. If it's too long, you can always cut excess off. And there you have it, guys. I hope this project was pretty simple for you or not so difficult for you to learn. Please hit the notification bell. I really appreciate everyone. I hope to see you guys back. I hope to see you guys enjoy the video or share some videos of you creating and tagging me. Thanks so much.